At the time, this ceremony and the words they uttered meant nothing to me. But later, I was come to know that this was the customary greeting between two green Martians. Had the two men been strangers, and therefore unable to exchange names, they would have silently exchanged ornaments had their mission been peaceful. Otherwise, they would have exchanged shots, or fought out their introduction with some other of their various weapons. Hello, and welcome to Part 2 of Pathfinder to John Carter of Mars. Today we're talking about the races of Mars. Yes, we've got a whole rainbow, a whole smorgasbord of different colored Martians for you to play as or battle as your adventure proceeds across the dusty plains of Barsoom. I am again joined by friend of the channel, Doomboy. Say hi, Doomboy.
Hi, Doomboy. With our discussing these races, we want to try and get into the mentality of figuring out how to best adapt them. And for some of them, it's easy. We can take a race wholesale. But for others, are a bit more dynamic, like our green Martian friends or our very odd orange Martian friend. We want to try and make them stand out a bit better. So with that in mind, we might try and suggest various traits you can add onto them or extra limbs you can add onto them. And these creatures are going to be a bit more powerful than the average creature might be. But that's the feel of Barsoom, for things to be dynamic and wild like that, to go a bit above and beyond your average fantasy, because Barsoom is no average fantasy world.
If the phrase subtle and understated enters your mind, just stop, look over at the exploding airship that's crashing into a fabulous palace carved from a single jewel, and think, no, I don't think they do that here. Anyway, we're going to start by talking about the most populous race on most of Barsoom, and that's going to be the Red Martians. Red Martians look very similar to humans, except they're red.
They also lay eggs.
Yes, most things on Barsoom lay eggs.
Very egg-based planet. Great for an Easter one-shot.
Absolutely. Or for platypus enthusiasts who like the idea of mammals that lay eggs.
Our red Martians are not the most exciting compared to some of the other ones we're going to get into, but they're not without their unique abilities, like being able to telepathically send messages to each other, which we felt that the message spell would be a good way to incorporate their psychic abilities, to be able to send messages to and fro. And it's not that game-breaking an ability, considering the short range that the spell holds.
Yeah, so having Red Martians have message as a spell-like ability that they can use at will, it gives them this psychic ability that their kind have, and obviously doesn't break the game, because, there is a short range. They can't just telepathically talk to each other from, one city to another. That it's not that powerful. It really is kind of like the equivalent of just talking, but they talk into each other's minds.
If everyone has the ability, it doesn't make it that broken. Like in an aquatic game, where if everyone can swim and use the y-axis or the z-axis, I forget, it's not that impossible to deal with. No one's going to be too powerful because they have this power. But speaking of power, should we move on to our green Martian friends?
Yes, one of the most visually distinctive races on Barsoom are the Green Martians, standing at 12 feet tall with 4 arms and tusks. They're like what you would get if you had orcs crossbred with the Mortal Kombat guys like Goro.
Alright, there's other people besides Goro. I forgot. Both that there were more people like Goro and that there was people to play besides Goro. They are a very warlike race, relying more on their brute strength than the vast technology that others have. But don't mistake the Green Martians for fools. With their cunning tactics, they're able to take down airships, bring ire and ruin to the Red Martians that fly above. They have a strict warrior class where one's might makes them right. That power is what they personify most of all. Wielding blades and blasters, they are a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, of all the races on Barsoom, the Green Martians have the highest proficiency and like for using firearms. So these green boys bring the Dejah, as they say, in a grim, dark future, very far away from here.
Very far. And in the future, maybe. Or the past. For them, we decided that it was important to give them not only an extra pair of limbs, but also grant them 2-weapon fighting proficiency, because they have those extra limbs. Preference towards using blasters and swords, and I think it's important that we stress that with this world, blasters are very, very common, treating them basically like firearms, because there's nothing too substantial with them. It's not your Star Trek phasers, where you're able to disintegrate rocks from 30 yards. They're just guns. But they look cool.
Absolutely. So this would be a guns everywhere level setting.
So the Green Martians, we took orcs for inspiration. We gave them a lower intelligence and wisdom, but due to their great size, we're giving them, well, the large size, which grants them a boon to their constitution and strength. They're a bit powerful, but that's the point of the characters. So DMs playing them, be a little bit wary of what they can do. They're not going to be the most likely for spellcasting, but we wouldn't rule them out.
Speaking of spellcasting, let's move on to the race which are often portrayed as the villains, or at least opposed to the actions of the heroes. The White Martians, sometimes referred to as the Thurn or the Holy Thurn.
When it comes to believing in yourself, believing your own hype, these people did not just write the book, they made the whole printing press. They love themselves. The world around them is beneath them. They see themselves as gods. So much so that they are willing to die to show off their divinity. So we look to high elves, because no one is that high on their pedestal than high elves.
Another trait that the White Martians have is they are, of the psychically inclined races on Mars, the most psychically inclined. They have more advanced psychic abilities. In some of the later books, you can see how they can essentially convince people of things that aren't there. They can make people see things. Interestingly, John Carter of Mars is a good time to bust out some of the occult classes, and Mesmerist is a really good fit for the White Martians. Obviously, when we're thinking about how to take them to the tabletop, this race will get a big bonus to charisma.
When it came to the White Martians, we felt that rather than giving them a specialty in weapons, instead we wanted to flaunt their wealth. So we suggested that, starting with the race, they'd be given the rich parents and the ancestral weapon, which would grant them more wealth than your average player would have, something DM should be aware of. But they are lacking anything in the physical departments to actually use that wealth well. They're rich, they're hoity-toity, and they throw that power around. We also recommend the Noble Scion class and the Noble Stipend to really hammer home that they're better than you. They're wealthier than you.
Alright, up next we have another very important race, the Black Martians, or the Martian Firstborn. Of all of the different Martian races, the Martian Firstborn were, well, the first. They did it first, and some would argue they did it best.
The Black Martians now find themselves as swashbuckling pirates, allegedly from the moon, who come down from space in the dead of night, reaping and rewarding themselves with their cunning by stealing from those unsuspecting fools on Barsoom and taking their ill-gotten gains back up amongst the stars. Is the hype they want you to believe. It's the hype that some of them believe, but it's not true. Our Black Martians are a mysterious race that do their best to stay mysterious. So with that in mind, we thought no better than the Drow to draw inspiration from. Best at swashbuckling and piloting in their airships, we gave them a bonus to stealth, a proficiency for sailing, because we can't just say pirating, and of course, weapon proficiency whenever it comes to using sabers and scimitars. They're swashbucklers, after all. Those are good swashbuckling weapons.
And obviously, the swashbuckler class is a good choice for any aspiring Black Martian pirate. And I would point out that having the ability to pilot all manner of craft on Barsoom is a great trait to have, because this is a world that does have regular large-scale air battles just kind of happen.
For that, you're going to want to look at the nautical combat rules and then put them in there. We also have airships, thankfully, in Pathfinder's core book, so that makes it quite simple to figure out how to stat them. What are these airships? They're airships! Easy peasy.
Up next, hailing from the frozen north, we have the Yellow Martians.
Our Yellow Martians are somehow even more mysterious than the Black Martians, each race more mysterious than the last. And with them, there's a belief that they are extinct, that they are wiped out. But this is a cunning lie they use to protect their ways, destroying any airship that gets too close to the frozen north. And for those that do, they have sinister games to play with them, trapping them in pits where they're shown food hidden behind glass panels. This is a whole chapter in the third book. It was great.
Of the races on Barsoom, the Yellow Martians are probably the most technologically adept. They have mastered the awesome power of magnets. They know exactly how they work.
This was an old book series, if we haven't expressed that enough, folks. It's the 1910s.
They have greenhouse cities in the frozen north. They have air speeders. One of the inspirations that we found when looking through what exists in Pathfinders were races like dwarves and gnomes. You know, the tinkering kind of races that like to build things. Those would be a good starting point when we're thinking about Yellow Martians.
Whenever it came to weapon choice, we thought that war picks, hook swords, and bucklers were the ideal. They're very keen on their cunning combat, using these odd weapons to best their foes when they actually have them.
The final race isn't really a singular race at all, per se. This one would be more of a template. We're talking about Earthlings. Going from a planet like Earth to wonderful wild Barsoom will give you some advantages.
We felt that due to the odd gravity on Mars that gives John Carter his Herculean strength, if you chose to play as a race from our regular worlds, like dwarves, gnomes, orcs, and whatnot, that the player would be allowed to choose a boost to their strength, constitution, or dexterity to represent that this odd gravity has made them much more powerful, giving them a bonus to jump checks as lower gravity lets them jump higher, and breaking stuff, because Edgar Rice Burroughs doesn't really know how gravity works either. But, you know, it's cool. It lets them be stronger as a means to keep up with these alien races with their psychic abilities and extra limbs and being wealthy.
And their terrifying magnet-based technology.
I just realized they have magnet technology and they're on the poles of the world. So yes, this is a way to make, if a player wants to, well, stick to the books but deviate away from the world by being not of this world. Giving them a template to slip over on top of everything else. Don't take away actual traits from the players for this. And in one of our later videos, we'll get into campaign ideas about playing just on this world without these Earthlings, and what adventures might be like if you find yourself suddenly stranded on Mars like John Carter did in his first book.
So one of the things we want to stress when we're looking at Earthlings, or not necessarily from Earth, but Galarian, you know what I mean. Think about this and the bonuses you get as a situational bonus that covers an entire planet. Whenever you're on Barsoom, you get this bonus to jumping, you get these bonuses to damaging unattended objects, and the fact is you're probably going to need those bonuses because everything on Barsoom is going to be kind of overpowered. With that, these overpowered things in mind, should we get into some of the flora and fauna that is flora of these worlds? Absolutely. Up next, we're going to be talking about The Monsters of Barsoom. Get ready, because we're in for a wild ride.
Heck of a ride.
Thank you for watching this episode of Pathfinder to John Carter of Mars. The works of Edgar Rice Burroughs and other classics of science fiction and fantasy are the foundations of games like Pathfinder and D&D. If you'd like to start your own journey across Barsoom, click the Amazon affiliate link in the description of this video and check out the Princess of Mars audiobook on Audible. Reading any of the John Carter books will be a great source of inspiration for you, whether you're a player or dungeon master. And if you'd like more awesome Pathfinder 1E content, check out D6 Damage on YouTube or BitChute. We've got class analysis, strategy guides, and much, much more.